Lots of injuries in last night's Bengals-Ravens game. What are people going to do?
We're going to discuss that, plus the starts and sits for Week 11. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Big Boys of Fantasy. I'm Sobi Subra.
And I'm Danny the Jesus, and on today's episode, we're going to have some takeaways from yesterday's game. Of course, we're going to talk about Week 11 starts and sits. But first, the injury report.
I hurt myself today.
All right, so last night we had a game, and there was some big injuries from last night's game. We'll start off first with the first injury, which was tight end Mark Andrews. Something happened where he kind of went down and they kind of landed on his ankle. We're not exactly sure what the injury is. It's something with his,
it looks like maybe multiple injuries.
It's a couple of things that happen all at once
with his legs. Yeah.
Either way, they don't have a clear diagnosis of what the extent of the injury is, but he's out for the year.
Pretty sure he's done.
Pretty much. They're trying to get another opinion, but it seems like it doesn't matter. He's going to be out for the year. Lamar Jackson was a little hobbly. He even went to the medical tent, but he still kept going. Luckily, because on the opposite side, Joe Burrow, he's gone too. Hurt his wrist. Something happened. He threw the touchdown to Mixon, and all of a sudden he was complaining about his wrist. He went into the tent. He went to the back. He came back out. He was trying to practice on the sideline, and it just wasn't working. And they officially declared that he's out for the season as well. He has to get surgery.
That just seemed to come out of nowhere there but Cincinnati might be getting in trouble right now because they were saying that he was spotted with like his arm kind of wrapped up or something on his arm. But they didn't say anything about his injury status. I don't know why teams are doing this.
Correct.
But,
it's kind of the similar thing that happened with Bijan, where if they knew that he was sick, they got to
like
report it.
Why aren't you saying it? Right. So it's not good. Another person that was out earlier this year was Deshaun Watson. It was looked at as like, oh, maybe it's not so bad. And then, out of nowhere, it was
like
nope,
a shoulder
he's
injury. Yeah.
Done for the year.
Yeah.
So, with both of these guys out and Mark Andrews being out, it's going to be kind of tough out there to try to replace him.
Especially so late in the season. Well, we know it's midway in the season for fantasy, but still, at this point in time, this is the last week for most leagues where you can trade. And it's going to be tough, especially if you played your players already on Thursday.
The good thing, which is not really good because they didn't give you a lot of points, but at least you don't got to scramble to pick somebody up this week, so you can kind of wait a week and see, who you can kind of get out there. I think the advice is try to just trade for somebody. I know you don't want to lose other spots, but these are onesie positions where it's just a lot of the leagues, you may just have one quarterback, one tight end, or you only need one. Right? Yeah. Especially if your bye happened already. So if somebody else has a second quarterback out there, you don't have to overpay, but try to trade for a quarterback, try to trade for a tight end for next week and kind of going forward. Or, we will definitely get into early waiver wires on Monday's show, and we'll try to kind of point at some guys, either that or you're streaming the whole time. That's another option is just keep streaming based on matchups.
Yeah, you could always refer back to Monday's episode as well to see some of the guys that we did mention that you can pick up. Hopefully they're still out there. Somebody's out there that you can go and get.
Like, to me, guys like a Baker Mayfield or a Sam Howell, you should be more than happy.
Absolutely. If you get that, you're lucky.
Right. You Derek Carr, like those are guys that it's not ideal, but you may end up, doing pretty good for yourself there.
It's no Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. So, getting into no Mac Jones for sure.
Oh my God!
I had to get that one. Yeah. He might not even they might not even want him in New England.
Yeah.
So getting into other injuries, Noah Brown has already been declared out. Damian Pierce is out, and Gerald Everett is officially out as of right now. We're doing this on Friday night. Couple of guys that it's kind of frustrating because the system has them as doubtful because they usually wait till the team puts them out. But the announcement's already there that they're out. Dallas Goedert and Antonio Gibson, they're not going to be playing this week. And a couple of other people that they're questionable right now. Justin Jefferson, he's still on IR, questionable with that hamstring. He's kind of getting in some practices. They don't have to take him off of IR right now. They have another week, I believe. And I think they're just using this as time for him to practice and kind of get healthy. I think they take one more week. I think he's out this week. And Tyler Lockett, just based on his practices, he's questionable with a hamstring. And he's really barely practiced. I think they said that today.
He was just out there hanging out.
He was just out there. I don't
No
even know
helmet
if it's
on,
considered
sneakers
a
on.
limited practice. So probably more than likely out.
Yeah. So Keenan Allen, he got injured on last Sunday, and he was taken out of the game for a little bit, but came back, scored a big touchdown. His shoulder AC joint, there's problems with that, but he said he's fine, that he's going to play through it, so he definitely should be in. Garrett Wilson is another one that's talking about that he'll be in this week, even though he still has the questionable tag because of his elbow. Alexander Madison. So this one's a little bit tricky because they're saying he needs to clear one more hurdle in order to clear the concussion protocol. However, it's the same thing that happened last time with KJ Osborne. So there might be a chance that he might not be in, even though he's cleared. They might want to rest him 1 week and just say, listen, we know we're just going to give it a week, because that's what they did with KJ Osborne. We'll definitely pay attention to that one. We're kind of like on the fence. We don't know what's going to happen with that. Christian Watson, I mean, I feel like he's on this list all the time, along with Aaron Jones. I mean, Aaron Jones, he was on here for his hamstring. I feel like this is going to be a thing every single week with Aaron Jones, but he's good to go. Christian Watson, I think he'll be fine to go. Deonta Foreman, I mean, there's a chance that he might not play because they figure they have Herbert back because he's only been getting limited practice, unless it's one of those things where just like, okay, they don't have to put too much pressure on Herbert coming back, so he might push it out so they can split it up. But we think he'll be ready to go. Jerry Jeudy's going something on with his hip, but
I think they're saying he is.
Yeah, I think he's good because I think he got some practice in today.
They suddenly put him on injury, so everybody kind of got nervous because it was a Thursday injury designation. But then I think he practiced today, so I think they'll probably announce that he's going to play.
Yeah, and these guys right now that I'm going to mention, they were on IR. So you got Devon Achane, right? That's his name, Achane. Okay, I always mix it up. It's like Achane.
My boy.
Yeah, Devon Achane. They said as long as everything looks good, he should be ready to go on Sunday. Pat Fryermuth, another one, he's been ready to roll for a little bit, and he says he's ready to go. As soon as they clear him, he's good to go, so he should be back this week. And Khalil Herbert, he's been full practice. They officially said that, hey, they're going to activate him on Saturday. So it's just whatever's going on. So, if you have him on your IR and you got to make some moves, like this guy right here, try to do that before Saturday, before he gets cleared, because then you get screwed over. So, that's pretty much it with that.
And so we can go ahead and get right into last night's game. Outside of the injuries, I mean, it was a pretty rough game because now you have, without Burrow there, it was just kind of getting ugly there for Cincinnati. Baltimore wins the game 34-20, but as far as Cincinnati goes, again, Burrow kind of had a half a game, so you can't really judge that. But Jake Browning kind of came in, not anything great or impressive, but I think they kind of tried to lean a little bit more on the run, and it's tough. You're coming in mid-game. It's hard to kind of judge that. But as far as, Joe Mixon, combined for 100 yards and a touchdown between his rushing and receiving, so he had a good game. Nobody else really had a good game. Jamar Chase, the entire game, he was one catch for 10 yards, and at the end he caught a 2-yard touchdown, which probably helped you out. You were at least relieved. All right, at least he gave me 6 or 7, depending on your platform. But other than that, Tyler Boyd keeps being Tyler Boyd, disappointing forever. Tyler Boyd,
Yeah.
3 for 22.
So I just want to add something to Cincinnati's side. I mean, Jake Browning, considering that this was his first game playing, and I think he barely got any snaps in an actual game, he didn't look that bad, considering that he was facing a tough defense like Baltimore. It was just kind of, they weren't prepared for something like this to happen. So I'm not saying that he is going to have some fantasy value going forward. We haven't seen enough from him, but I don't think he'll be terrible for your pass catchers.
How nervous are you if you have Jamar Chase or T. Higgins?
I was nervous if I had T. Higgins before because it seems like he just can't stay healthy and stay on the field.
Right.
As far as Jamar Chase goes, he was still getting targets. I think he had 4 targets before Burrow went down, so that means he probably had 3. But like you said, it could have been that they were just leaning more on the run because they didn't want to force too much on Browning, considering they were facing a tough D like Baltimore. I'm thinking that with this week's of practice, with the starters, they might get some type of chemistry going on because it really seemed like he was hitting up Irwin a lot, which makes sense considering the fact that Irwin is not technically a starter on a weekly basis. He's just kind of starting more because of the injury.
They may have been practicing together on the second team.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So and it didn't look bad. So for that reason, I'm like, okay, maybe this guy won't be so bad. So just something to think about. Don't go into panic mode. But if you do want to,
but for T. Higgins,
it's kind of like
sounding the alarm.
Yeah.
Just haven't used the button in a while, and I figured
no problem. If you want to seize that opportunity,
it's true. He really's been questionable and hasn't been doing great with Burrow.
Yeah.
So now
I think the best thing about T. Higgins is the fact that at least he's out. It's worse when you have him that he's playing and he doesn't do anything for you.
Absolutely.
Because if that was the case, then you'd be like really annoyed. At least because the last time he played, he actually had a good game.
Right.
He had, I think, 110 yards with 8 receptions, something to that effect. Right. It's just that he's just not staying on the field. Right. So, I don't know. We'll see what's going on.
T. Higgins playing injured and not giving you anything is basically like Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd. Yeah. Tyler Boyd.
I had to dig one more dig in there. Go ahead.
All right, so we'll go to the Baltimore side. We'll start off with Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson has not been having Lamar Jackson type games as of late. But this one was actually pretty good. 264 in the air, 2 touchdowns with 54 on the ground. It was a pretty good, solid game for Lamar Jackson. Could have been an even bigger game. He had a long touchdown to Zay Flowers that was called back on like a very minuscule like hold. It wasn't even really anything that serious. But either way, speaking of Zay Flowers, pretty disappointing. Only 4 targets. He ended up turning that into 3 for 43. But the one name that actually benefited the most after Mark Andrews got hurt seems to be Odell Beckham. He looked pretty good.
And he's done it the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, like, we said it when we were talking about the waiver wire. Like, he's someone to kind of, like, monitor. Not necessarily you have to play him, but someone that's, like, you realize that he's actually getting more and more involved. He looks more comfortable out there. He looks a little bit of the Odell of old. Not 100%, but, like, he's making those moves. He's being quick. He finished with 4 for 116. No touchdowns, but it doesn't matter. He went over 100 yards, and he was heavily involved. He did get hurt towards the end of the game, but they said he should be okay. And then in the run game, you got Gus Edwards. Man, this guy, he just doesn't stop. He scored 2 more touchdowns. He had 12 rushes for 62 yards. He caught a couple in the air for 8 yards. And I just think as someone from now on, you just got to keep going with him. I mean, it doesn't matter who the matchup is against. I think once they get to the goal line, they just know it's Gus time. And then Keaton Mitchell, not that great of a game, but the good news is it seems like he finally did surpass Justice Hill like we were predicting, and he got more carries, trying to get him more involved. I can see that going. I could see him trying to be the one to wear down defenses a little bit at the beginning and be the change of pace guy, while Gus is kind of like the guy who bowls over everybody and gets the goal line carries. So
the only, let me be the Debbie Downer of the Baltimore Ravens, though. I'm definitely worried about Zay Flowers. What worries me the most about Zay Flowers is the 4 targets. So Zay Flowers started off great, caught a 33-yarder, then had the what you were talking about,
The
where he
60-something
cuts
yarder.
across, catches it, and runs it in for a 6-yard touchdown. Okay, gets called back. At that point, as somebody who rosters Zay Jones and is starting him, Zay Flowers and is starting him, I'm going, it's okay. He's clearly getting involved, and they are going to him like crazy. It's like they just stopped. And I don't know what it is. Is he not getting open? I don't know. Keaton Mitchell, again, yes, I think he kind of does take over the Justice Hill, just like you mentioned. But outside of a 21-yard run, he went 7 for 21. 7 for 12. Yeah. So he's got to do more than that. He's got to show some explosiveness, especially since, like you said, Gus Edwards just eats at the goal line.
Not only that,
they're trusting him, and he's getting it done.
He's looking good. He's getting good chunks. Like at the beginning, I want to say he probably was like
chunky boy.
He's a chunky. He actually. The funny thing is, there was someone he called the chunky boy.
Called chunky boy.
I can't remember who it was.
Since.
Yeah, but
he could definitely be chunky boy.
But I don't know. I was watching it, and I'm like, wow. Every time he would give him the ball, he would just find like 5 yards here, 6 yards here. At the beginning, it seemed like he was having trouble running, and then all of a sudden it just opened up where he had a big run for 26 yards. He just looked good. That's what I'm saying. Basically, he looked good.
All right, so we're gonna go right ahead and get into our main event here.
I'm ready to go in, Coach. Just give me a chance.
All right, we're going to go ahead with our start sits for Week 11, starting with the Steelers at the Browns. This line changed for sure once Watson was taken out. It's the Browns by 1. I think they were by 4. I'm a little surprised they still have them. 33-point over-under in the run game. You're talking about the 27th, rushing defense for giving up points. So 27 is bad. I'm not trusting Najee right now. Last time they faced the Browns, even in PPR, he scored like 5.3 points. Warren, I'm gonna go ahead and say you could start him. I am not confident about that though, just because Cleveland has been basically shutting down running backs, and now you're taking what they're getting and splitting it. If I had both and I was going to start one, I would start Warren over Najee.
As far as the pass catchers go, I mean, you already know you're not starting Kenny Pickett, so I'm not really going to focus too much on him. I'll start off with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. Now, Deontay Johnson, he's been very reliable when it comes to PPR. He's getting these targets. Last week, it was just not a good game. I think the matchup is not great for either or. I would sit George Pickens definitely in this game because I just don't see it really happening because of the defense. Deontay Johnson, I feel like you could start him this week. I think he'll give you, hopefully, if he gets the targets, at least about like, let's say like wide receiver 2/flex points this week. And then Pat Freiermuth, I like the idea that he's coming back this week, but I don't like the fact that it's against the worst team to play your tight end against. Yeah. So for that reason, it's his first week back. I'm benching him. Not playing Freiermuth this week. And on the Browns, you have Jerome Ford and you have Kareem Hunt. Ford, the last time he played against the Browns, he went off 16 carries, over 100 yards, a couple of receptions in the air, and I believe a touchdown as well. Listen, you're going to play him this week. He's definitely shown that he can run almost on anyone. I think he was the first one to run over 100 yards on San Francisco. So I think you can plug him in with no problem. And Kareem Hunt, I think he's going to get involved as well. He's the guy that you want at the goal line. I think the Browns will, even though it's not Deshaun Watson under center, I still think they'll get down there and he'll be able to punch it in. So I like both plays this week.
So as far as Amari Cooper, I am going to need your help here. What is the name of the quarterback that's replacing Watson? Because it's not P.J. Walker.
No, it's not P.J. It's like Dorian
Thompson,
Thomas or Thompson.
We really should know this.
It's a long name. It's like DDP or something like that, or
like PDJ or something.
No, it's D Dorian, then T.
Oh, Dorian is his first name?
Yeah, I believe so.
I thought it was a P. Anyway,
no, I'll look it up while you talk. There you go.
The new quarterback for the Browns. When they actually put him in, the last time we saw him, he was atrocious. But to be fair to the guy, he kind of came in, I believe, in the middle of the game. He hadn't gotten first starter reps. And now that they're saying, this is our guy, I think what Cleveland is doing is saying, let's see what we have with this guy. We know what we have with P.J. Walker. But let's see if this guy can kind of get it done. I'm going to say I think they target Amari Cooper heavily. It's a good matchup for wide receivers only, not for tight ends, and I don't think for quarterbacks. So I'm going to go ahead and say start Cooper. I'm not starting Njoku. He could be a safety blanket for him, but I don't think so. It's way too tough of a defense to play Njoku against. So.
His name is Dorian Thompson Robinson.
Where did I get P from?
I don't know. Maybe you're thinking about Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Maybe it's P.J. Walker. And I'm just like...
I don't know. Too many initials. These people just... Yeah.
So Dorian Thompson
Robinson.
I already forgot it. All right.
Yeah. DTR.
So as far as defenses, probably play both.
Yeah.
I think both defenses will be good in this. 33-point over-under is incredibly low. So in the next game, we have the Raiders at the Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 13.5 points. That's almost like the Giants-Cowboys last week. 46.5-point over-under. As far as the Raiders' run game goes, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm starting Josh Jacobs. I'm not going to really worry about it. He's gotten about 16 to 22 points a week the last 3 games, so... Go ahead and start Josh Jacobs, even though Miami could be kind of tough.
Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. I mean, Devontae Adams is he's probably very frustrating because it seems like the first half, you're like, okay, I'm getting the Devontae Adams of old. And then the second half comes along and you're like, what happened? It's been like consistent with that. But in this matchup, I think you play him. I think he'll get targeted, even if it's during the first half. It's a good matchup. You're going to play him anyway. Jacoby Myers, on the other hand, even though the matchup is not bad, I'm going to throw these numbers at you. 1, 2, 2. Those are the amount of targets he had in the last 3 games. Yeah. I think Devontae Adams has had that many targets in one drive. And for that reason, I am not playing.
1, 2, and 2?
1, 2, and 2.
The last 3 games?
The last 3 games.
Did he score on one of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I feel like one of those games it wasn't that bad. He might have just had one.
He just had the touchdown. That's what it was.
That is terrible.
That is terrible. I can't risk
You can't risk
based
that.
off of those numbers. So for that reason, I am not playing Jacoby Myers. Yeah, I was very shocked when I saw that as well.
I did not know that either.
Yeah, that's something like, oh, wow.
I roster Myers, but I've been really trying not to.
Yeah, because he started off so hot. I mean, him and Jimmy G, it seemed like a match made in heaven, and then he went down. This is different.
Maybe when Jimmy G comes back, but
if he comes back, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So, and then on the run game for Miami, I mean, Raheem Mostert, he's definitely someone that, you know, if you drafted him, you were happy with him because you didn't expect this type of production. Unfortunately, he is going to get someone that's going to be probably a little bit better than him, that's going to be playing from behind and can do a little bit more with less touches, and that is Devon Achane. Now, I think you can play both of these guys. I think they do play well with each other anyway. I think there's more than enough room for both of these players to feast on, so start them both up this week against the Raiders.
So, Tua. It's really tough to kind of decide on Tua here. I'm going to go ahead and say this is a tough defense for quarterbacks. But I am going to go ahead and say start him this week, unless you have like a much better option, which you might not, because there's a few teams on a bye and stuff, even though none of them are quarterback heavy teams there. But if you look at Tua's numbers over the 8 games, he's had 4 games that he was like under 16 points, and then 4 games where he was over 28 points. He is so kind of hit or miss. So to me, I'm looking at that over-under, and I'm saying they are just going to score like crazy. Some of that running back production is going to come off of some passes to H-Han, and he takes off, or passes to Mostert, and he takes off. So I'm going to go ahead and say play him, but, I'm not expecting him to kind of go off like crazy.
So we know the type of player that Tua has been for fantasy this season. Now, do you like him rest of season, or you feel like he's kind of like...
I do, because I feel like you just have to know what you're getting.
Okay.
Right? So you can't be sitting there penciling in the points that they're giving you. You have to understand that you're going to have some hits and misses.
Now, rest of season, who do you think you like more? Tua or CJ Stroud?
So for that, I have to do a little bit of a deeper dive as to who they're playing.
Okay.
But if I was just to answer that with just nothing, I'm going to say Tua because of the 2 guys that I'm going to mention, Tyreek Hill and Waddle. Again, bad matchups for receivers, but I'm going to start them, and I'm starting Miami's defense. But just based on that, I mean, at the end of the day, it's Miami versus Houston. Who do you have more faith in, that Miami offense that sometimes goes off, or CJ Stroud, who passes a lot? Granted, I kind of like them both. So... nothing against Stroud, but
Correct.
Probably Tua I would give the edge to. However, I would take a look at the matchups, especially in the playoffs, which I haven't done.
Yeah. I only asked because I know they face the Jets twice.
Who? Miami.
Dolphins, yeah.
All right. Who's got Houston? I have Houston. So I'm gonna look at some point. If you guys see me looking at my phone,
yeah. So look at that.
I'll give you an answer by the time we get to
what I'm talking about. Somebody,
by the time we get to Stroud, we got a few games to go. So next game. That's actually a very interesting question. That's a good question, man. I wish I was prepared.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's all good. So the next game, we have the Bears at the Lions. Lions favored by 8. The over-under is 48. Is huge. So in the run game, Foreman is questionable. This is a very tough team to run on. 28 out of 32. Khalil Herbert should be coming back.
He will be back.
I'm going to say I'm not playing Foreman, and I'm not playing Herbert. I think it's going to be split. I think it's going to be a little bit of work, split amongst the 2. They're going to have to pass just to keep up with the Lions, so I'm saying no.
Yeah, and because they're going to have to pass, this is why you're going to want to play this gentleman right here, who will be coming back after, I think it's a 4.5 game absence, and that is Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields was definitely drafted as a top 6 quarterback in most leagues, and in the last 2 full games that he played, he had a total of 8 touchdowns and averaged over 300 yards. I mean, if he continues that, then it's someone who could probably be the number 1 quarterback if he kept this up on a weekly basis. So you're absolutely going to play him this week. And you're also going to play DJ Moore, who's probably thanking everyone that Justin Fields is back, because his numbers have been taking a hit because he hasn't had someone who's been able to get him the ball where he needs to be throwing the ball. This is a great matchup for DJ Moore. I think this is a huge bounce back for him. You play him with confidence. And I also like Cole Kmet. Good matchup for him. I think you can play him. Even if it was Bajent that was under center, I think you can still work with that. But either way, play your pass catchers against the Lions this week. And then on the other side, you have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I mean, They have both been doing very well. Last week, Montgomery came back. He showed you why. He's worth the roster spot. He's probably somebody that if he was on a different team, he'd just be going in the first round in some redraft fantasy leagues. He's doing that well. Jahmyr Gibbs definitely getting involved in the goal line. I think you can start both of them. It's a good matchup. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead.
Do you see the Montgomery thing kind of continuing the whole year, or do you think that starts to fade out a little bit?
I think it'll probably lean more towards Jahmyr Gibbs, but I still think that Montgomery is going to be involved. I think that he's definitely worth at least an RB2.
I do think that people have to kind of look themselves in the mirror and look at the reality, though, if you have Montgomery, because a lot of times we tend to kind of see the first couple of weeks of the year and just think that, like, every once in a while I'll look at a player and it's like, oh wow, that's right, he is really struggling, I haven't paid attention or whatever, because that initial right after the draft, we all want to take a look at the first couple of weeks and kind of say, this is what this person is this year. And you may not be paying attention, especially if you don't have them rostered and you don't realize, like, oh, never mind, it's kind of changed. I agree with you, but I have to say you got to look if Jahmyr Gibbs is getting goal line touches, because it's kind of like the whole Gus Edwards thing, except Gus Edwards is not giving up those goal line touches.
Correct.
He's being very successful.
Yeah.
So that's consistently happening. If it starts to shift, I don't see Detroit going Gibbs majority and barely any Montgomery. I don't see that at all. But you might not be what you had in your head as far as what Montgomery was at the beginning of the year.
Correct.
Montgomery looked like you said, like a first rounder at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely.
And it's like, yeah, that's because they weren't doing much with Gibbs. They were still like, all right, rookie, kind of wait and probably learn a lot of the ins and outs and the pass blocking and like other things that these rookies, we forget that it's a lot that they have to kind of get used to with the team, not just can he be explosive.
I think going to lean more towards Gibbs from now on because he's shown that he can do it, and plus the draft capital that they have on him, they're going to make sure that they use
like using.
I think they like. I don't think Montgomery fades away. I think Montgomery's still a thing. I think Gibbs is just gonna probably take a step higher than Montgomery. Montgomery's probably gonna take a little step back, but I think they both eat.
This is in the passing game, this is a very, very good matchup. The third best matchup for quarterbacks, ninth best for tight ends, and pretty okay for wide receivers. I'm looking at an 8-point for the Lions, 48-point over-under. You're playing Goff, you're playing Amon-Ra, and you're playing Laporta. Don't even think about it. All right, that's it. Moving on to the next game. I'm not messing with defenses, by the way, in this, only because Justin Fields could kind of
we don't know what Justin Fields
you pay. So you could play Detroit, but
it's a risk. It's a risky
may have better options out there. So next game, Giants at Commanders. Commanders probably with their best line of the year, favored by 9.5 and a 37-point over-under. Man, when you get a big line and it's still a low over-under, they know the Giants are trash. So I have the tough part of Saquon Barkley. Saquon, you're going to start him. I don't know who's not starting him, but just lower your expectations. He's got a capped ceiling. I'm expecting about 10 to 18 points out of Saquon, and that's about it.
Yeah. Pass catchers, quarterback, nobody. I'm not even going to dignify it because I'm not. I feel like this.
We have a button for
that. Because it's expected. Nobody. We're not doing it because they don't deserve it. They
do deserve it. Nobody.
Moving on. I am going to go with Washington's run game. It is Brian Robinson, and apparently Antonio Gibson is out. Well, he's going to be out because he's doubtful. Yeah. So that just makes it even better for Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson, you're going to play him. You're not even going to think about it.
It's going to be an amazing game for Brian Robinson. Not to piggyback on you. Did you know what? I'm going to quiz you. Mm-hmm. What number is Brian Robinson in the top 12 total points for running backs in a PPR? Let's say in our league.
Okay. Like, where does he rank?
Yeah.
7.
He's like 5.
Okay.
Did you expect that?
Um.
There's games where you didn't want to play him at all.
Well, he started off so strong.
Well, he's
So strong.
kind of killed it lately. But
Well,
wow.
but I'm saying
And
his
now,
first.
what a wonderful
Yeah,
matchup.
first half it was strong where you're like, oh, this guy, you don't even think about it. And then it got cold, and then eventually warmed up again. And I mean, last week he had a huge game. So
The Giants defense was kind of, I feel like, went down with Daniel Jones. I feel like they were so much better, even when they were gotten beat. Even when they got beat by the Cowboys that first week, the defense only gave up 2 touchdowns. It was like on your defense scored and stuff like that. They've just gone down. It's like there's no hope on that team. More injuries keep happening. I like to play everybody against them.
So here's a hot take. Ready?
Uh-huh.
This is why Daniel Jones is more important to the Giants than Saquon Barkley.
I mean, are you playing me for running back? Because we're playing Danny DeVito.
No, I get it. But this is why they look at it like that. I'm
I
not
know
saying
that's
he's
why they look at it like that.
because as good as Saquon is,
Yes.
he can't do anything because no one else is there to help him out.
I just would like the Giants to compare Saquon to a running backs and compare Daniel Jones to quarterbacks.
Correct.
And comparing Daniel Jones to quarterbacks tells me he's not worth the 4th or 5th highest paid player in the NFL.
Oh, I 100%
That is
agree with that.
ridiculous.
But this is why I say that the NFL and they think the way they do.
That's why they trash, and that's a whole episode we'll probably have, because we talk about this all the time in the offseason, about why the NFL just hates on their running backs, and they'll go, I'll give you 11 instead of 10. How about that? Will you stay? And quarterbacks is like, oh, this guy had one good year. 40 mil! Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And that's not just them. They're all doing it right now.
It's all like that. Yep.
Yeah. So going to we spent way too much time on that. But going to the passing game, Sam Howell. This is definitely somebody I'm going to go after here. It's 9.5 points. Granted, they could end up running a lot, but I'm going to go ahead and say start him. He's had 3 straight 300-plus yard games. In the last 3 games, he scored 8 touchdowns. McLaurin, this is the 3rd best matchup to receivers. I know he hasn't been doing great lately, but I think he definitely turns it around this game. Definitely start McLaurin. And as far as Dotson goes, no. Honestly, Dotson, I don't know what's going on with Dotson. He could be a hero. He could give you a 0. There you go. I didn't mean to rhyme. And
wait, what was his snap count last week against
I want
Seattle?
to say 95%.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
you know
2
that.
targets, no catches.
Yeah.
He celebrated every time they scored, though. I saw him in the end zone every time. It's like, yeah. It's like, oh, he wasn't on the sidelines. He was on the field. And as far as Logan Thomas, not a good matchup for tight ends. He's okay if you need him, but if you can avoid that, go ahead and sit him. All right, the next game, Titans at Jaguars. Jaguars favored by 6. Over under is 40. So as far as Derrick Henry, so he definitely disappointed last week. But this was Tampa Bay with the 2nd toughest matchup against running backs. He's averaged 91 yards, 3 for 21 in the air. The games before that, I believe the 3 games before that or something like that, just total, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say start Derrick Henry this week and not worry about it. Tajay Spears is just not getting enough play for me to kind of consider him.
Okay. As far as on the pass catchers and the quarterback, we're not starting him. Will Levis, obviously, it seems like that one game, it was kind of just took everybody by surprise. He hasn't been able to recapture that moment with DeAndre Hopkins. And speaking of Hopkins, I mean, normally you would just start Hopkins. You wouldn't really think too much about it. But here's something to know. Hopkins actually has had 20 targets in the last 2 games. They haven't all been that pretty, but at the end of the day, you're still getting
10 and 10?
No, it was kind of like 9-11 or something,
Okay,
like close
okay.
enough.
Yeah.
Either way, it wasn't just like one game where it was like
I don't know if you meant 20
17.
and 20. Or
Oh
some,
no,
like
20
insane
target.
number.
No,
Gotcha.
20
Combined,
targets
yeah.
in total. The last two games. Sorry, I thought you meant
So
like.
he's still the top.
Yeah,
guy,
he's still the guy
easily
that's
the go-to
going.
guy.
So
Yeah.
so you're gonna play him. You're gonna start him and hope that he's catching most of these targets. So, and that's the only one that I would lean towards as far as the pass catchers. And then with Jacksonville, I know Etienne, he had a rough game last week, but it was against a tough defense in San Francisco. And obviously, listen, we all have those games. They're all not going to always hit. And this week, he goes up against the Titans. It's kind of mid in the pack, but Etienne is a true talent. I see a big bounce back for him this week. You're obviously going to start Etienne this week against the Titans.
In the passing game for the Jaguars, I know Trevor Lawrence has kind of been one of those, or at least he was drafted to kind of be one of those, just start him and forget about it. But I'm going to go ahead and say in this matchup, it's not a great matchup for quarterbacks. He is yet to pass 22 points. Now, granted, it all depends on what your format is, but in our format we get extra points for going over 300, so it's likely, even more likely, that you'll go over that. And the fact that he's never hit it the entire year tells me that's kind of.
Not only that, some leagues have 4 points for passing
Yeah,
touchdowns.
that's right.
So
We do 6 points.
so we're talking about based off our rules,
Right.
which gives a little bit more
Little bit
points.
more points for
So now you're
for-
saying there's a chance it's even
for
less.
passing, and more
For
for
touchdowns.
going over that 300 yards, and he's still not getting it done. So I'm going to go ahead and say no, not unless he's in a really good matchup. I'm going to go ahead and say sit him. Christian Kirk, however, this is one of those weird situations where it's tough for the quarterback, good for the wide receivers, and it's a good matchup for wide receivers. He's been very consistent. Go ahead and play him. Ridley's always a question mark for me every single week, and I say this week I'm going to go ahead and sit him. I don't think Lawrence has a big game, therefore I don't think Ridley will. And Evan Ingram, same thing. It's a very tough matchup against tight ends, so if you can afford to sit him, go ahead and sit him. I'm not saying just pick up anybody off of waivers and plug him in. Like, I play him over Chigakonkwo across the way, but that's about it. All right, next game. We have the Chargers at the Packers. Chargers favored by 3, 44-point over-under is very easy. Great matchup for Austin Eckler. Go ahead and start him. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it's not that great of a matchup for the passing game. I mean, Justin Herbert, it's the Packers are 29th. They're ranked 29th, so they give up the 29th least amount of points against the quarterback. But Justin Herbert has showed you last week why you drafted him high. He went for what, 4 touchdowns in the air last week. I still think he gets it done this week, even though it is a tough matchup. He still has Keenan Allen. I know he's questionable, but he's gonna play. And Quentin Johnston, I mean, last week he did score his first touchdown. He was involved. I would sit him this week just because of the matchup. And Jalen Guyton, I think he's another one. Like, he's kind of one that I don't mind rostering just to see what happens. I feel like this is the game where you're going to see, like, okay, is it Quentin Johnston that's stepping up more, or is Jalen Guyton the next man up? But obviously, you're always going to start Keenan Allen no matter what, and I don't mind starting Justin Herbert this week. And on the run game, it goes Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. You know, I feel like I talk about them all the time. I don't know how I always end up having Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. But Aaron Jones, he's
home.
Yeah, he's officially healthy. It's a great matchup. I think you're going to plug him in. I know he hasn't been that great. He had the one good game a couple of weeks ago where he did score the touchdown, but he is getting majority of the carries. So because of that, you're going to start him. And A.J. Dillon, even though A.J. Dillon ended up outperforming Aaron Jones last week on the ground, he's not getting the touches that Aaron Jones is. So for that, I'd bench A.J. Dillon, play Aaron Jones.
All right, in the passing game has been kind of real hit or miss for the Packers. This week, though, the Chargers' defense is not great. They have given up the 4th most points to quarterbacks. I'm going to go ahead and say you could start Jordan Love, and I haven't said that since like week 3 or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and say if a little bit of a bold statement. If it's between Love and Lawrence, I would start Love.
Wow.
Yes. Because of the matchup. I think they're going to need to pass, and I think he's going to be able to get a couple of touchdowns this week. Are you surprised? Then, as far as the pass catchers go, I'm going to say it's okay to start Dobbs. He doesn't have a huge ceiling, but if you need to put in your flex. This is like the sixth best matchup against wide receivers. So go ahead and start Dobbs if you need to. And if Watson is out, I think the same goes for Reed. I think Reed, we were kind of saying, is he kind of starting to take over? It might be, again, if you need a flex spot, go ahead and start him. I'm saying, you know what? Even if Watson is playing, he's probably going to be so limited anyway. But my thing is he still ends up getting a lot of the targets. He almost gets more targets than anybody else. If those targets are going to the other two, they'll probably be a good a good matchup and a really good matchup for tight ends. Third best matchup for tight ends. So this is a situation where I'm saying you could start Luke Musgrave. So yeah, this is not normal that I'm saying
talking
start
about
all these guys, but yeah.
On Green Bay, yeah, right?
Next game, we have the Cowboys favored by 10.5 at the Panthers. They get the Giants, then the Panthers. What are you guys? This has got to be fun, huh? This is great. You don't even have to watch after halftime. 42-point over-under. So he disappointed last week, and we did say we think he's going to have a good game. I'm going to go ahead and double down. I'm going to say the second best matchup, two running backs. This is going to be a bounce back game for Tony Pollard, and I think you can go ahead and start him. And Dowdle, I'm not trusting Dowdle. I mean, maybe in a blowout, in which this could be, so it would be kind of like real risky. Maybe it's somebody in DFS or something. You're kind of plugging him in. I just don't see it happening.
So, with the Cowboys, this is the type of game that they tend to they got to destroy them, and they just lose. I don't know why. I hate it.
Oh.
I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm not saying. No. But I'm just saying because you're over here talking, you get this or that. No. Listen, don't forget, this is the same team that lost to Arizona.
When they win. Arizona had one win.
They had no wins, and we gave Arizona for the longest time their only win up until last week, and that's because Kyler Murray came back. All I'm saying is,
they faced Kyler Murray that game.
Huh?
They faced Kyler Murray that game.
No, it was Josh Dobbs. He wasn't even around.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, when it comes to that. Either way, besides the point. So, this is actually a tough matchup for quarterbacks, which surprised me. I guess they just run all over them. But how do you say you're not going to play the quarterback that has been averaging 339 yards for the last 4 games with 14 total touchdowns?
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, if you have Dak, this is a guy that at the beginning of the season, no one really drafted him as their starter. Everybody thought that, Cowboys are going to turn into this big running team. They're not going to pass that much. Kellen Moore is gone. They're just going to work on that. And it seems like they just said, we're flipping this script. And now Dak is hooking up with CD. And it's like, what is going on? All the time. I mean, CD just broke the record, actually the NFL record, for 10 receptions and over 150 yards in 3 consecutive weeks. My goodness, they obviously are just going to show that they need to feed this guy. And for that reason, I'm playing Dak. I'm playing CD. I don't mind playing Brandon Cooks because it seems like they're probably going to get him more and more involved. I know last week he had a big game. The week before it was nothing. But I think they're finding kind of like a stride, and hopefully that's what they're going with. And Jake Ferguson. I mean, Jake Ferguson has been pretty damn consistent.
Don't forget about my boy.
No. It's on there. You just can't see
under.
it. It's just, a little bit under.
I got you.
But I remember it this time, so I won't forget that.
Good.
And then for the Panthers, I mean, Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, it's not a good matchup. Even if it was these guys haven't been really playing up to par. Miles Sanders, forget about it. I'm not even thinking about him. Chuba Hubbard, he's been okay, but for this matchup, I don't like it. You got way better running backs that couldn't perform against the Dallas D, and I'm not picking these two. So these two are both a sit for me.
So, as far as the passing game goes, it's been weeks now, so let's not even get into it. The only person that you're considering is Adam Thielen. This is the second toughest matchup for Adam Thielen for wide receivers. The last two games, Adam Thielen has averaged 5.5 receptions for 35.5 yards. So I am not starting Adam Thielen. And if I'm not starting Adam Thielen, I'm not starting anybody from the passing game. So basically, we're telling you to start from Carolina.
See that? I don't mind.
I did use the button.
It's okay.
All right. Next game, Cardinals at Texans. Texans are favored by 4.5 with a 49. I think that's the highest one. Point over under. James Conner, 16 rushes in his first game back. I think the arrow's pointing up. I'm going to go ahead and say start James Conner. Nothing to see here.
Okay. Kyler Murray, right? Kyler Murray.
Is the way you say it.
Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray. Now, last week was his first game back. You know, he didn't do so bad. I think he only ended up with 1 touchdown. Easily could have had 2. He had a decent game considering what was going on. It's not a bad matchup this week. And I think that depending on what Kyler you get, you know, he might be running around all over the place, so he might get some decent yardage on the ground. I think he's definitely worth a start this week. And Marquise Brown, it's not a great matchup in the air. Last week, he only had the 1 catch. You know, he is talented, and I know he's Kyler's go-to guy. Maybe they just needed to get an extra week to get in sync. I think he's an okay start this week. I actually like Rondale Moore a little bit more. Not because I think Rondale Moore is going to get more yards. I just think he's going to get targeted more. And because I think he's going to get targeted more, he's going to get those catches, and they add up, especially in a PPR league. So I think both guys are more like flex-worthy this week. And Trey McBride, it's a juicy matchup. He definitely likes to get peppered with targets. It doesn't matter who's under center. Under center. So I think he's definitely a good matchup this week that you want to play with. And on the other side, I know it's not.
I'm like we got to start giving these guys nicknames. McBride could be Unter. And then when I go to an Italian restaurant, I like to order some calamari.
Oh, man.
Calamari.
Ooh.
That's how you said it. You said
calamari.
Like calamari.
Oh,
calamari.
That's good. That's good. Calamari. I want some calamari. I don't know why that's never been a thing.
No. The way you said it.
All right, I'm going to keep
going. Go
ahead. Dameon Pierce, he's out. Devin Singletary had a great game last week. 30 touches, 150 yards with a touchdown. I think this is a juicy matchup for him. You're going to want to play him this week, especially since he doesn't have Pierce to be involved. You start him up, no props.
All right, I'm going to go backwards here, and I'm going to say in the passing game, I'm going to talk about the quarterback last. Okay. As far as Collins and Tank Dell, I think Collins is off the injury altogether, right?
Yes.
So those are the two healthy guys, and Noah Brown is out. Go ahead and start them up for sure. I think they have a great game this week. And Dalton Schultz was questionable. I don't think he is anymore, correct?
Not that I know.
It is a bad matchup for him, so I'm going to say he's a sit. I'm not saying go out and get somebody else. If that's your only tight end, you're going to play him. Okay, he's been doing pretty good lately. I'm just lowering my expectations. So if I have to say start and sit, I'm going to say sit if you have like a much better option. Like a Jake Ferguson or somebody of that nature.
Gotcha.
You know, somebody as good as him, I would sit him. Now, as far as CJ Stroud goes, this is a great matchup. 9th best against quarterbacks. He's a definite start for me. Look at that over-under. That's crazy. Now, going back to our question, CJ Stroud or Tua. rest of year. I went and did a little bit of research, and CJ Stroud does face the Jets, I believe. He has a couple of tough matchups, and it's not even close to the tough matchups that Miami has. I think Tua has the worst playoff, not just the 3 games. Like, I think CJ Stroud has like real easy matchups, and then it gets tough at the end, but it's okay. Whereas Tua has tough matchups, a couple of okay matchups, and then in the playoffs, he faces the Jets, the Cowboys, and at Baltimore. So when you really need him, you should just trade Tua right now. I'm saying Tua is a trade away target. Get whatever you can, because you're going to hate to face those 3 defenses in the playoffs. Most people's playoffs are 15, 16, and 17. So.
Yes.
What
So
are you gonna say?
3 things. First one, I had put a note on here, and I realized that you probably took it off, and I put it on another team. So 2 things. First, Jacksonville, I'd play their defense against the Titans. We saw what the Bears did to the Titans on Thursday night, and not much has changed. Jacksonville's a better defense than the Bears, so I'd play them this week. Second, I put Houston's defense as a sleeper. The reason why is you probably don't even realize most of their points have been double digits, and they faced Baltimore, they faced Cincinnati, and other tough matchups. So I like them this week.
I like them this week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look this up.
Yeah, so that's another
Thank you
thing.
for the advice.
Correct.
Big boys offense.
Now, the last one is, Adam, you just got your answer. It's no. All right.
That's it?
Yes.
I don't get to know what you're talking
Oh,
about?
he has Tua,
Oh.
and he wanted to trade CJ Stroud.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I already knew
Nice.
that was going to be the answer.
Oh, okay.
That I needed you to do
Nice. Pop quiz, baby. I passed.
it. All right.
So this week, though, who are you playing? Are you playing, just, listener question, are you playing CJ Stroud or a calamari?
Or calamari. Actually, I'd
In the same game.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
same
I'd
game.
actually play CJ Stroud.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the 4 o'clock games.
All I picture is calamari looking like a calamari.
Like a dish with his, on his head.
Yeah.
On his head. All right, the 4 o'clock games. Buccaneers at 49ers. Niners favored by 11.5. Another huge line. 41.5 over under. All right, so Rashard White, I would say, gonna go ahead and say you could start Rashard White. This is a tough matchup, though. San Francisco's kind of been shutting down, running backs, but I think you can start him. Just lower your expectations. Like, to me, he goes from an RB2 to a flex this week. Let's just
That makes sense. That makes sense. Baker Mayfield, he's been doing really, really well. We've been talking about since the beginning of the season, actually, how he hasn't been that bad, especially when you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Rashad White, who's been doing really, really well in the backfield. It's not a great matchup. It's one of the tougher ones out there. But because of the way he's been producing and against tough teams, I don't mind starting him up this week. I'm not expecting giant numbers from him, but he's been on a roll with about 3 or 4 games in a row where he's tossed 2 touchdowns. So I think he's definitely playable this week. If you are in a bind, I don't think it would be that bad. And Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, it's actually a really good matchup for them. I think you can start both of them up. Obviously, Mike Evans is more of an auto start than Chris Godwin, but because I said I think Baker will be okay this week, Chris Godwin's going to be one of the ones that's going to benefit from that. And K. Dotton, I'm not really looking into him right now unless you're pretty desperate. It's not a great matchup for him. And on the opposite side is CMC. I mean, I feel bad because we really don't get a chance to talk about this guy enough. I mean, I guess we could talk about the fact that his touchdown streak got broken last week, which was unfortunate. And they really try to get him in there.
That's
at
the only thing we're saying is when it's negative.
I know. But I feel bad because it's like, all right, 4th down. and the game is out of hand, and it was like the only thing that Jacksonville had to play for was find a way to stop CMC from breaking the record,
right.
which is, in a way, it's kind of like, oh, you did it, but in a way, it's like, oh man, you could have let him do that. Like, just let him do it. You know, what difference is it gonna make? It's not gonna hurt you. It's like catching a coworker doing something that's not really affecting you, but you're kind of like, like getting on them for that. Like, come on, man, it's not affecting you. Just let them get away.
You know, you lost.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't think people want records broken against them. I'm just saying, they don't want to be the other guy.
I know.
So on the passing game, Brock Purdy. Really good matchup, seventh best, for quarterbacks to give. And this guy in the last 2 games, 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Go ahead and start Brock Purdy this week for sure. And I think Ayuk is definitely going to eat a lot. This is a really good matchup for receivers. I think Debo is okay. I don't know. I haven't been really trusting Debo in the way that they're kind of using him, but I definitely think he's like flex worthy this week for sure. And Kittle, it's not a bad matchup, and I think he ends up doing well. Start Kittle, and of course you're starting the San Francisco defense. Well, I don't know. Would you start the San Francisco defense? Tampa Bay has kind of been putting up points.
I think you just start them. Yeah. I think it's just kind of like, you expect what you expect from them. They because you don't know which San Francisco defense is going to show up, and you don't know what Tampa Bay offense is going to show up. Right. It's kind of like, give or take. I think they're not going to kill you if you play them this week.
Okay. Next game, Jets at Bills. It's actually going to be an interesting 4:00 slate here. The Jets, Breece Hall, he's just actually a really good matchup for the run game. So I'm going to go ahead and say start Breece Hall. Don't worry about it. He's getting enough touches in the air to make it worth it, even if he doesn't get like 20 carries.
Yeah, and in the passing game goes, you're not starting Zach Wilson. Garrett Wilson, you're going to play him. He's been showing that he's been targeted enough that you're going to play him pretty much on a weekly basis. And then Tyler Conklin, it's not a great matchup, but it's kind of like, I know some of us are a little desperate out there, so you might want to play him this week. It's not ideal, but if you're in a pinch, I would play him this week. And then in the opposite side, you had James Cook. It's a great matchup. You saw what he was able to do on Monday night. Once they get him going, he can definitely change the game. And the way that everything was going last week, he was fumbling at the beginning, and they kind of gave him that like benching a little bit. But then he came back, and he was just like, no, this is why you need me in the game. And who knows? Maybe if they would have had him in the game earlier, they would have probably not lost to Denver. So James Cook, I think you can start him up this week, no problem.
All right, so this is kind of tough in the passing game here because this is not a good matchup for the passing game. But how am I going to say to sit these guys? I'm not. This is Josh Allen. You have to start him, but just lower your expectations again. And he has been not great against weaker defenses, but I think he kind of figures it out. Maybe he doesn't disappoint. That's kind of the best you're hoping for. I think his ceiling is capped in this matchup. And same for Stephon Diggs. This is the toughest matchup against wide receivers, but I'm not going to say to sit Stephon Diggs. You're going to play him. Kincaid, I think he actually does pretty well. That's the only thing is the run game and the tight ends is kind of where the Jets kind of give up their yards. And as far as the defenses, would you start both?
Yes. I would, because
normally against Buffalo you would say don't, but I think the Jets defense is solid. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Let's put it this
Buffalo.
way: Jets. I don't know in how many possessions now it is. I don't. The last I heard, and I know it's gone up since then. 30, I think 31, 32 offensive possessions where they have not scored a touchdown on offense.
Oh, for sure, I'm starting Buffalo.
Yeah. Oh, you were talking about the Jets.
No, I'm saying you start the Jets against Buffalo because usually
I
when
misheard
you're facing Buffalo.
Oh no, yeah, I'm playing the Jets.
But I think the Jets are good.
I'm playing the Jets on,
and Buffalo's been kind of struggling.
To me, the Jets, I don't even think about starting them anymore. Right. They've proven against better opponents that they can shut them down.
Hold that thought for the last game. So next game, Seahawks at the Rams. Seahawks by 1 point. Favored and 46.5 over under. Walker, I'm gonna go ahead and say to sit this week if you can. Obviously, when we say sit, if Walker's like your best running back, you're not sitting anybody. But when kind of sitting there saying start or sit, I'm going to say this is a very tough matchup. And the last time that they faced the Rams, week 1, they really shut him down. So they may end up kind of going more the passing game than the run game. Based on that, Walker's really been feeding off of big plays. And if he doesn't get that big play, he could disappoint. I feel like this might be one of those games.
Okay. Geno Smith had his best game last week of the season, but it was against a defense that was really, really bad. I mean, a defense that gave up almost all their big-time players in Washington. I think you can start him this week because of that. It's a middle-in-the-pack defense that he's facing this week, and it's a division game. So when I feel like when it's a division game, you always want to bring out your best. And I see Geno Smith having a decent game along with DK Metcalf. I feel like no matter what, you're always going to start Metcalf. He's such a game changer when he's out there. Lockett, I'm a little worrisome about Lockett. Now, we are saying that we don't think he's going to play, but you know what? He's done this before. He has done it where he's like, he didn't practice all week. You don't think he's going to play. Then he plays, and he probably has one of his better games. So it's kind of frustrating. But if he doesn't play, I would definitely play JSN this week. I think JSN has been showing that he's ready to take that next step. He's been showing it the last month and a half, I would say. If Lockett is not there, it just makes it a little bit better. But if Lockett is playing, I still think Lockett would be a little limited. I don't think they're going to force it too much, especially if there's a chance that they do get up early. I think they're going to limit him. And then in the run game, it's Darrell Henderson and Royce Freeman. I think Henderson, it's a good matchup. I think they'll lean on him a little bit just because they'll probably feel like that's the best way to attack Seattle is in the ground because it is a very good matchup. They give up the 5th most points. So I just don't know if Henderson is going to be the one that takes over or if it's going to be Royce Freeman. Maybe it's just a little combination of both. I think at best it's a flex. I think if it were to get to the goal line, which running back I think has the better chance of scoring, it's probably Henderson. I think they'll lean more towards him because he's the one that's been more familiar with the team on the long run. So flex at best. Royce Freeman, I'm not really looking into.
All right, in the passing game, Stafford is back. This is a mediocre matchup for quarterbacks. However, even though he was kind of injured, Matthew Stafford hasn't scored. The last time he hit 20 points was week 5. It's been a while. Even when he was healthy, he wasn't really kind of getting it done. I say I'm going to go ahead and sit him. As far as his pass catchers go, I'm not going to go ahead and say, oh my God, these guys, the auto starts. I'm just going to say lower your expectations. They're kind of wide receiver 2 flex at this point, at least until you start to see the magic again with Stafford. So I'm going to go ahead and say start them both. But, just kind of lower your expectations. And I'm not starting Tyler Higbee.
Okay.
All right. And the night game on Sunday night, the Vikings at the Broncos. Broncos favored by 3. 42.5 over under. Madison, are we saying he's out or he's in? We're thinking he's kind of in.
I think he's going to be cleared, but based off of what happened with KJ Osborne last week, there's a chance that they might hold him back.
So this is a concussion. So you're going to know right off the bat whether he's in or out. I'm going to say this is the best matchup against running backs, even though that was kind of thrown off by that Miami game where they just destroyed Denver. Mm-hmm. So that number is always going to be like that. But clearly they haven't changed. They're still number 1, giving up points to running backs. I'm going to say start whichever is the starter. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If it's Madison, start Madison, because if they cleared from the concussion, that's it. They're just going to go with him.
Yeah.
Or start Ty Chandler if Madison is out.
What I'm afraid is that if they do start Madison, I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to share because they probably don't want to give all the load to Madison because he was just coming off a concussion. That's why I think it makes more sense for him to not play this week.
Yeah, but if he does play, to me, that's a team saying he's all right.
Okay.
I don't think. I think it would go to the normal, whatever that is, right?
Gotcha.
Because Ty Chandler, maybe they start to get him a little bit more involved, but I
Yeah.
think he kind of takes the back because it's not like it's your ankle, and now they got to test to see if you
Correct.
can cut. They got to see if you can kind of make the moves, and it's like, oh, never mind. Like those are the scary,
Yeah.
things. So
Josh Dobbs, he ever since he got to the Viking, even before he got to the Viking, he wasn't that bad for fantasy, and he just got better and better when he made the transition to Minnesota. And I think you can continue with this. It's a great matchup. He has Addison, he has KJ Osborne back, and he has TJ Hawkinson, and Hawkinson has the best matchup for tight ends. So yeah, you're gonna play Josh Dobbs, you're going to play Addison. I think Osborne is okay if you need to on a deeper league. I'm not too crazy about playing him. Like I said, deeper league. And TJ Hawkinson, it's not even an option. You play those guys. And Javonte Williams is not a great matchup for Denver running backs. However, Javonte's getting more and more involved every single week. He's catching the ball. He's running the ball. He's all over the place. He's scoring touchdowns. And just because, based off of that, his involvement is enough for me to warrant me starting him this week. I think you get a decent game out of him, at least probably, hopefully, like double digits. So I would start Javonte Williams this week.
all right, in the passing game, Russell Wilson's kind of been getting okay numbers here, so I'm gonna go ahead and say in this matchup, it's not that tough of a matchup. It is gonna be okay to go ahead and stream Russell Wilson. Like, I think that's another person that I would probably start over Trevor Lawrence this week, over Matthew Stafford this week, or whatever kind of these mediocre kind of options that you have. As far as the passing game goes, Jerry Jeudy, this is a really good matchup. I'm still not trusting him. He's questionable. I just don't know if he's going to be that involved, and he's kind of been disappointing. I'm going to go ahead and say sit Jerry Jeudy, but who I'm not sitting is Cortland Sutton. 7 of the last 9 games, this guy has scored a touchdown. He's been a touchdown machine for them. I'm going to go ahead and say start Cortland Sutton this week. And would you play Minnesota's defense against the Broncos? I feel like that's a trap sometimes. It's been disappointing.
I feel like it's okay. I feel like it's not bad. That's why I put them up there, because I'm like, you know what? I think they'll give you some decent points.
I wasn't sure if you put them up there. I didn't put the defense.
I did. I
just wrote that in.
Oh no, maybe it didn't go. Maybe it didn't register.
I didn't. I copy your. We're just gonna let you guys know how we do the show. I copy your columns and I put them in this.
Yeah, I could have. I
didn't copy the defense. I didn't.
I did put that in. I put Minnesota as well.
That's why I was asking.
Okay.
I just put it in.
Oh,
but I don't know.
You know
agree.
what I thought you did? I thought you saw what I put in defense, and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna go with that.
No.
So that's why I was just okay.
I just forgot to add your defense.
Okay, because normally I don't. That's why. Sorry. A little behind the curtain, you know.
All right, the last game, and a big one at that. Eagles at the Chiefs. Chiefs by 2.5, 45.5 point over under. So Swift, this is a tough matchup against the run game. I'm actually going to go ahead and say to sit Swift if you can. Swift did struggle with the Dallas defense, and this is kind of a tough defense to run on also. I think this is a pass-heavy game, so unless he's involved with the pass, I'm going to go ahead and say sit Swift.
Okay. As far as Jalen Hurts, I know he's a little banged up, but there's no way you're going to bench him, and you're not going to bench him. You're not going to bench A.J. Brown. There's a chance that you might think about Devontae Smith because he's been kind of hot and cold, but I think the fact that now Dallas Goedert, who's
I was just going to say the same.
Doubtful.
Yes. Doubtful.
Doubtful. I think you can start Devontae Smith with confidence. I think he's going to reap from the fact that Dallas Goedert is out, because it just seems like that's what happened last year when Goddard was out, that Devontae Smith was just going off, and you're like, wow, this guy's outperforming A.J. Brown. So start them all with confidence, and you're not going to start any backup tight end for Philly. no matter who it is. I don't even know who they have there. Or
I
like,
don't know anymore.
yeah. It's like Stahl or I don't know what the guy's name. Something like. Either way, you're not starting that guy. And then on the run game for Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco, it's the worst matchup for running backs. Pacheco has been disappointing the last few weeks. He couldn't even run against Denver. And there was one other matchup that he had it was an easy layup, and he really didn't do much either. For that reason, I'm sitting Pacheco. I don't like him this week. Sit him.
All right. And in the passing game, this is the best matchup for wide receivers. This is the second best matchup for quarterbacks. So I'm going to play this guy, Patrick Mahomes. He should be good. This Travis Kelce kid, he's good. And I'm going to play Rashee Rice this week. And that's it. I'm not trusting anybody else, but those three for sure. I think it's going to be high scoring. I'm hoping for a shootout. I'm hoping we don't get disappointed with a defensive game here. I think it's actually going to be a shootout in the air. And for that, I'm not starting either defense.
No.
All right. So that's it for us. We got through it. Good luck this week. Don't forget to go ahead, tune in, subscribe, like our shows. Let us know. We do. If you did see, I did a stream just to kind of test that out. Don't worry about that. But I think eventually we are kind of thinking about doing something. We'll announce it well in advance. This way people can kind of tune in. But that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's
Sorry
not much.
about those injuries.
Yeah.
All right.
Take it easy.
Good luck this week.